When the Legends Die, Chapter 23, Part 1. Aztec, as Red put it, was just a wide place in the road, but its rodeo drew ranch folks from the whole area, people eager after a long, hot summer to meet old friends, roister a bit, and have fun. The contestants were mostly ranch hands who had learned to ride and rope on the range, and in Sunday morning afternoon show-offs in some ranch corral. The spectators came to see an exciting show, to bet on friends and neighbors, and to cheer any special event that might be offered. Purses were small, but betting was free-handed. Red Dillon had ridden at Aztec the year before, and knew enough local people to rouse mild interest by saying he wasn't a contestant this time. "I just came to see the show," he said, and then added, "and to see if the boy here can ride. He thinks he can, and I think this is as good a time as any to find out." His listeners looked at Tom, who was just another Indian boy in faded Levi's, work shirt, and scuffed boots, and whose hair looked as though it had been cut with dull sheep shears. Several men grinned and asked Red if he'd like to lay a few bets on the kid. Red laughed. "I said he thinks he can ride. Let's wait for the first go-round and see if he's good or just lucky." It was a 2-day show, with a parade the first morning, barbecue at noon, and a first round go-round, in rodeo parlance, in the events that afternoon. The second day, there would be 2 programs, the semifinals in the morning and the final go-round in the afternoon. The arena was the local baseball field, where pens and chutes had been built of bright new planks in the infield, and corrals had been thrown up in the outfield for the bucking horses and the wild steers and calves. Like most small rodeos, the program consisted of calf roping, steer riding, bareback bronc riding, and saddle bronc riding, with a wild horse race and a wild cow milking contest thrown in for laughs. Bigger rodeos added steer wrestling to the program and brightened it up with pretty girls doing trick riding, and big circuit rodeo, especially when playing in major cities, was beginning to add horse show events for glitter and style. But Little Aztec Minor Show was built around the heart and core of rodeo, men riding unbroken broncs and men roping untamed calves, and the classic event was the historic reason for the rodeo itself, the saddle bronc riding. Fundamentally, it was man against horse, cowboy trying to master an unbroken bronco. It was the same thing Tom had done when he rode a drunken cowboy's fractious horse in the dusty streets of Bayfield to win $1. But here he would ride out a chute, just as he had at Red's place on the San Juan, and he would ride according to the standard rodeo rules. He must hold the rein in one hand, not touch saddle or horse with the other hand, must rake with his spurs, keep his feet moving, and he must ride 10 seconds. Then a horn would blow, a mounted pickup man would come alongside, take the rein from the rider, and let the rider pivot out of the saddle, off the bucking bronc, and swing down to the ground. The ride was scored on points based on skill in the saddle, and the worse the horse, the more difficult to ride, the higher the successful rider's score. If a rider was thrown or committed a foul, he lost the go-round. If the horse refused to buck, the rider got another chance on the same horse, or, if he chose, a different horse. In bigger rodeos, all the riders rode in all 3 go-rounds. Their points were totaled and prizes were awarded on each man's totals. But at Aztecs, as in most small rodeos, each go-round was an elimination contest, leaving only the 5 top riders for the finals. As Red put it, this was a sudden death show. You had to place well up in every go-round to stay in the competition. "So start right out riding rough and tough," he told Tom. "Take the first 2 go-rounds." The first day Tom drew a snaky, wide-winded black that bucked in a tight circle. Tom had no special trouble with him, and he was surprised when the 10-second horn blew. The pickup man rode alongside. Tom handed him the reins, grabbed his shoulders, and swung out of the saddle as Red had taught him. He was almost back to the chutes before he realized the crowd was applauding him. Red said he had made a good ride, and when the score was announced, Tom placed second. That evening there was a good deal of talk about this new kid, the Indian who didn't look more than 12 or 13, but rode like a man. Red had put down a few small bets on him at the last minute, and he made a few more bets on him for the second go-round. But when pressed to bet on the finals, Red shook his head. "Let's take it round by round. Tom's luck may run out tomorrow." To Tom he said, "Now they've weeded out the Sunday riders. Tomorrow morning you'll just have the good ones and the lucky ones to beat. Give 'em hell. Ride your draw high, wide, and handsome." And that's what Tom did. He drew a big roan that tried to tear down a chute while they were saddling him. When the gate swung open, the roan went out with a series of spectacular lunges that brought an instant roar from the crowd. They recognized Tom. They knew a vicious bucker when they saw one. After 2 jumps, Tom knew he could ride the roan, so he raked and gouged with his spurs. The roan bellowed and fought. Tom punished him every legal way he knew. He rode all out, and when the horn blew, the crowd was in an uproar. They cheered him all the way back to the chutes. Red praised him extravagantly, and when Tom was announced as winner of the round, Red collected his bets. He offered to bet on the finals, jeered at those who refused to wager, but he kept his bets small. When the morning program was over, they went to eat dinner. Red had several drinks and began to talk as though he had one too many. The betting crowd listened to his brag and winked at each other. A few of them placed bets with him on the finals, but again Red kept his bets low. And when he and Tom started back to the rodeo grounds, Red sobered up the minute they were alone. "Well, Tom," he said, "you've been a hero, like it?" "Yes," Tom said. "Thought so. Well, that's all over now. You're going to be a bum in the finals. You're going to lose and lose big." "No, I'm not. I can—" "Shut up. I said you're going to lose the finals. I'm giving the orders. I've got the deadfall all set up. You'll lose the finals, and they'll think they've got me on the hip. Then I'll really take 'em. In the finals, you're going to give your horse slack in the rein after the first few jumps and look for a soft place to land. Hear me?" "I hear," Tom said reluctantly. "You do like I say, or I'll break your goddamn neck. You get thrown. Then, after the final go-round is over, you're going to ride again. A special event. And then you'd better be a hero and start running. Do you understand?" "I guess so." "You know so. You damn well know so." When they were back in the arena, and Red acted the part of a drunken braggart again. Tom had drawn the number 3 ride in the finals, and his horse was a big black. Red, still playing his drunken role, let Tom do the saddling, but before he mounted, Red said, "You know what I told you." And there was both threat and warning in his eyes. Tom said, "I know," and settled himself into the saddle, adjusted the rein, jerked his hat tight, set his spurs. The announcer bellowed, "Coming out of the chute number 3 on Tar Baby, Tom Blackbull," and the crowd began to roar. Tom signaled the gate men. The gate swung open, and the black lunged out, bucking. It ducked, side jumped, and Tom raked with his spurs. He could ride this horse. He knew he could. But after the first few bucks, he let the rein slip as the black ducked its head. It got 6 inches of slack, came up in another buck, and Tom had lost his leverage. As he went back in the saddle, the next lunge drove the cantle into his kidneys. Then the pommel jabbed his lower gut, and he was loose in the saddle, the pain seeming to cut him in two. Another side jump, and he knew it was all over. As the black bucked again, he instinctively kicked his feet free and went sprawling, thrown clean and hard. The crowd groaned. Tom lay for a moment, gasping for breath, aching with pain and hurting inside, because he knew he could have ridden that horse to a standstill. He rolled over, hunched to his knees till the pain eased, and he held his breath again. Then he got slowly to his feet. He unbuckled his chaps and limped back to the chutes, his head bowed in shame as much as in physical pain. Red came to meet him. He put an arm around Tom's shoulders and said loudly, "Tough luck, kid. Goddamn tough luck." "What happened?" Tom looked at him, hating him, and didn't answer. Red's fingers pressed into his arms, warning him, and they went back to the chutes. Tom sat down in the shade of the chutes, head in his hands. He heard a chute gate swing open, heard the grunt and pound of hooves, the cheers of the crowd, the slap of the chaps on the saddle skirts of the next rider when his bid for made his bid for the purse. It didn't matter. When the horn blew, the crowd cheered, and a few minutes later the chute opened again, and the last rider's horse was squealing, pounding the ground with that punishing, man-killing dance of desperation. The crowd cheered, gasped, then groaned, and Tom heard the thud of the rider striking the ground. He didn't even look up. Somebody else had been thrown, somebody who had tried, who hadn't been thrown because he was ordered to. Then the brunk riding was all over. The judges tallied their scorecards. The announcers was bellowing the final results. Tom Blackbull, because of his spectacular rides on the first 2 go-rounds, was placed 4th, just ahead of the last rider who had also thrown. Red came and helped him to his feet. "Guess that's it, Tom," he said. "Your luck just ran out." He began stuffing the bronc saddle into the gunny sack. The men who had bets with him came to collect, and Red paid them off one by one. "You took me," said, "but I still say the boy is the best rider here. He just had a bad luck with that big black." A stocky, black-haired ranchman laughed. Two others who had just collected bets from Red joined in the laughter. "So you still think the boy is top man?" the black-haired man asked, winking at the others. "Damn right he is." Red looked around. "I say Tom can ride any horse here, any one of them." "That's big talk, Dillon." "I still say it."